Ba 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 ba.
Dun 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 dun. Jingle, 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 jingle bells, jingle. Yeah, it does help.
What's going on in your apartment?
Yeah, sorry. My orange male cat is starting a fight with the girl cat.
We're rolling. We're rolling.
This is a real thing. Real thing.
None of you have the balls to stop this. Stop this.
I've got plenty of time. I have nothing else going on today.
We're in the Wedge neighborhood right now.
This is the Wedge Live podcast. I'm your host, John Edwards, and it's the last monthly with Melody of the year. Here we go.
Monthly with Melody, where I share all the news for you and me. Monthly with Melody, let's get down to it, John and me. 3, 2, 1, let's go.
Let's go. Holiday episode.
Actually turned down my volume when the song came on.
It is too loud.
No, it's too obnoxious is what it
One take. They call you One Take Melody.
That's me. Just so everybody knows, if you're tuning in late to Monthly with Melodies, that was one take. I never heard that song before, and I just made up the lyrics as the music went. And that is what we used for that.
You're the only regular Wedge Live guest with their own theme song.
Yeah, Taylor.
So the idea of this episode is kind of like a year-end wrap-up episode. We do have our top stories prepared for you, listeners, but they're not necessarily ranked in any order of importance. It's just things that happened this year that we found notable, and we're going to talk about them here at the end. Melody, you want to go first? Give me your first story of 2024.
Well, I did hear that you're going to start with something fun, so I won't start with something serious.
Okay.
I'll start with one of the top stories was that Kingfield got a Sebastian Joe's, but the way that Kingfield got the Sebastian Joe's was very cute. Also, it involves me. But the reason they got it was because kids got together and made a letter that said, we basically demand a ice cream store be opened up in Kingfield. And there was like a long story to it, but basically one thing happened and another thing happened, and then Sebastian Joe's decided to open up an ice cream store in Kingfield.
It's not that simple, kids. That's not how commercial real estate works. Kids of Kingfield. You can't just say you want something and get it. How many people in the city have said, gee, I wish I had a grocery store I could walk to close to my home, and they don't get it.
Yeah, it does help.
What's going on in your apartment?
Yeah, sorry. My orange male cat is starting a fight with the girl cat in the house. And
sounds like wrestling.
I need to stop it, so
okay. Well,
hang on one second. I'm going to just...
Melody has handled her large adult son.
It's a cat.
So I was explaining to the kids that that's not how commercial real estate works, and we're spoiling the children of today by just... They say they want an ice cream shop and one opens up. That's not how it works.
Yeah, I mean, they said, Sebastian, sorry, I should be closer to my mic. I should have better mic etiquette. Sebastian Joe said no at first, and then kind of by chance, Apoy closed, which is in the building that Sebastian Joe's owns. And I think it just like one thing led to another. It is very unrealistic, but it also is a very cute story.
Well, it's good I'm having you on. This is the first I'm hearing of this story. That's how big this story was. I don't pay attention to the news, Melody.
You don't pay attention to Southwest Voices news, which is confusing.
I don't pay attention to your news, Melody. I should, but it's good because every time you come on here, you're telling me stuff I have never heard about, even the outrageous turkey story, which I think is also on the list here. So everyone tune in. My stories will be bad, but Melody will be bringing you more turkey news. Although
Okay, so
maybe-
what's... Oh,
maybe-
no, you go.
Maybe that's a sad story because it does end with a dead turkey, right? That's how
Yeah,
it
it's
ends.
community. Yeah, it's
Okay.
pretty sad. The amount of preparation we did for this episode is beyond any preparation we've ever done, and yet we're still here.
We did so much prep that we're talking about last year's stuff.
I have last year's top stories in my notebook here.
So Melody sent me a list of her stories from last year. And one of our top stories was Lisa Goodman going away after a quarter century on the city council. Well, you guess what, listeners? One of the top stories for 2024 is Lisa Goodman coming back. Nobody elected her to come back. Nobody asked for her to come back. Mayor Fry was just like, he created a job, a new job at the city that costs $330,000 and increasing year over year as we go forward, so that Lisa Goodman could come back and just work the rest of her days at City Hall with her pals. And I mentioned this on a recent episode. Like, I can't take the budget pouting seriously from the mayor because this is the year he created a job just for Lisa Goodman to do. Like, if money was tight, is that how a mayor would act? No. He's not being fiscally responsible. And nobody wanted Lisa Goodman to come back. Nobody wanted that. I'll give you the job title here. I should probably do that. Director of Strategic Initiatives and Partnerships. Doesn't that sound vague? Doesn't that sound super vague? Like you could just come into City Hall and hang out. Sounds like that kind of job, doesn't it? Develop and implement economic recovery and inclusive economic development strategies focused on key geographic areas, including downtown and cultural districts. This position is needed to develop and lead strategic partnerships and initiatives essential for downtown's economic recovery. Bring in Councilmember Goodman, who spent a quarter century representing downtown, for some new ideas about how to revitalize downtown. I guess that's not as fun as I expected it to be. As much as I enjoy talking about Lisa Goodman, it's not a happy topic for me.
Do you know if that was like an open job call?
So this is good, Melody, because I didn't explain the history. This job was created during last year's budget season. So same thing we just went through. The council created, the mayor recommended, and the council approved this job last year. And I started hearing rumors last year that Mayor Fry would create a position specifically for Lisa Goodman and she'd come back. I thought that's just a rumor. People are making stuff up because it sounds plausible. And then someone contacted me in a position to know, who's like, I know what the job is going to be. And it's this job. It was just created. And that was like in January, February. So this was baked. This decision was made, and they might say, "Oh, we put out a call for applications, and we landed on Lisa Goodman." Imagine that. It was an open process. People applied, and Lisa Goodman was the best candidate for the job. No, it was cooked. It was baked. The job was created for her, and now she's back.
I've heard about those positions before. In other industries, like they do that in academia all the time.
Create jobs for people.
Where I'm from. Yeah, or it'll be like an internal hire, but they have to go through the like public job call process.
Yeah. Your next story, Melody, do you have a...
Yeah, so since we brought it up, let's just go with the turkey story. So early this year, in the Kenny Armitage neighborhoods of Southwest, so that's deep southwest, a beloved turkey was apparently run over by a USPS truck driver, because trucks don't kill people, drivers kill people, or turkeys. Sorry. Mm-hmm. And I talked to a lot of residents about this turkey, and named Gregory. It had a lot of different names. That was one of them. And this turkey was known for being a jerk. It would dart into this like 4-way or at least 2-way stop sign intersection and kind of taunt drivers. I'm not joking about this. People would just explain this to me without me prompting them, and just kind of known for its attitude, but people tolerated this turkey. And then apparently a new USPS worker came into the neighborhood and didn't like this turkey very much. And as we know about wild turkeys, they can be aggressive towards human beings. And this is when the very allegedly kind of, the story goes, a witness, another driver, saw this postal worker hit the turkey with their vehicle. And as I talked to residents, it wasn't like, how squirrels will just dart in front of people's cars, and sometimes it's hard to avoid hitting some wild animals. Mm-hmm. Apparently, it would be hard to hit this turkey accidentally because it moved very slow and would just kind of sit there. It wasn't one to dart into traffic. So I contacted the U.S. Postal Service multiple times to try to get a statement, and they kept saying it was under investigation. And then at one point when I followed up with them, they said, all of a sudden the story changed, and they said, we don't release information to the public about this, or we don't publicly release this information. So beyond doing a FOIA request, they're not going to release the information. So it was a big story in Southwest for this turkey to die.
Yeah, I'm surprised it didn't make the TV news. Perfect story for the TV news.
I'm surprised too, actually.
What's going on, TV news? You don't read southwestvoices.news?
Well, I wonder sincerely if it was because they couldn't get an official statement from the post office.
Oh, they go with weaker stories than that.
Oh, do they? Okay. Here I am thinking that they had.
They don't. TV news doesn't need much to go on to do a story. You can put anything on TV.
Okay.
Just to show up to a neighborhood, interview some people about what they think happened, and there's your story.
Yeah. I should do a FOIA. It's just as a one person, you know how it is. As being a one person. I really should do a FOIA request on it, because it's the fact that they came back around and they're like, we'll let you know. And then they're like, actually, we're not going to release any information. First, that's sus. Yeah. And second off, that's suspicious.
Mm-hmm. Both of those things.
Yeah. So, okay. What's another top story for you?
My second story is a meaty one, and it's MPD.
Let's go. Oh, okay.
It's just my ongoing disappointment. Lately, it has been that the chief is playing politics in a way that it really turns me off. I'm really turned off by Chief O'Hara, because MPD just got a $12 million budget increase. Mm-hmm. Their budget is up, I think, $49 million since 2022, which is the first year Chief O'Hara was when he first entered the job as chief. So the budget has gone up a lot. Say what you will about that. It's just the fact. The MPD budget has gone up quite a bit, and quite a bit in the most recently approved budget. And he has repeatedly gone on TV, not just in the press conference right after the budget was approved, when he and Fry were complaining about it. He went on TV yesterday, the day before we're talking here.
But I can tell you this. The police department in Minneapolis, the members that work here have become experts at doing more with less. So we will readjust, and we will figure out, how to ensure that we're able to provide the services that we need to next year.
Are there any areas that really hurt, though, that you looked at and went, this is going to be a problem?
I think the overall concern is just that there would be an additional cut to the police department budget. Mm-hmm. The police department here has lost over 500 police officers since 2020. We're about 40% down overall. We've lost dozens of civilian members as well. At the same time, we have a whole lot more of new work. There's reform that's going underway with the state under the settlement agreement, as well as potentially now a federal consent decree.
So talking about cuts, when there were no cuts, there was only addition, $12 million in the most recent budget, $49 million additional money for MPD since 2022, the massive pay raises, This doesn't include settlements for police misconduct. It doesn't include payouts to cops for those dubious workers' comp claims that have become increasingly common in the state of Minnesota since 2020. So nothing but money are we showering on MPD, and nothing about the current state of MPD has anything to do with them being deprived of resources. So I wish going into an election year in 2025 that our police chief would stop lying to the people of Minneapolis, stop playing politics, try to be the police chief for everyone and not the police chief trying to get Jacob Fry reelected. I'm kind of sick of it. I was tired of it when it was Arredondo. I'm really disappointed as somebody who was kind of hopeful at O'Hara when he got here that like he would be the straight shooter that I think he likes to style himself as.
I listened to that audio clip earlier today. The reporter asks that great question about like what is something specific, and he doesn't answer that question.
Right.
He didn't say, oh, it's they cut X
and
from
we can't
our
do Y. They cut X and we can't do Y. He didn't do that because he wants to talk about the cut because it's all politics. He wants to get to his talking point that the scary defunders are succeeding and me and the mayor are the guys who will stand between you and them. He wants people convinced of a scary thing that is not happening. Hasn't happened. It's not happening.
Because if anything, the city has spent more money on the police.
Significantly more.
And given that, to his point, actually, if there are less police on the force, right, if there's less workers, wouldn't there be less money spent?
You would think. They are paying a lot for overtime, but
that makes sense.
The staffing situation at MPD has never had anything to do with a lack of resources. Never. Like, we don't have to get into the George Floyd aftermath, but they blew up their own police department, destroyed their own reputation. And if people decided they didn't want to do that job anymore in Minneapolis, it makes all the sense in the world they wouldn't want to be associated with MPD anymore. That had nothing to do with resources. They were never deprived of resources. And that gets to another part of the MPD story for 2024. The killing of Officer Jamal Mitchell during a mass shooting. We've seen violent crime, gun crime is a problem in the city. It's a problem across the country, and Jamal Mitchell was responding to a shooting in the Whittier neighborhood. He was fatally shot there. Tragic, heartbreaking. But the thing about that irritated me was, again, Chief O'Hara turning that into like it was anti-police rhetoric that caused that.
And quite frankly, just a general sense that it has been okay, it has been normalized to paint with a broad brush every man, every woman that wears a police uniform in a way that we would not find acceptable to any other group of people.
Is this in the aftermath of George Floyd?
Certainly in the aftermath of George Floyd, but I think it's something that had been building up over a period of time.
Okay, and then
people need to know words have meaning, and a lot of violence against groups of people, whatever groups of people it is, by religion, by ethnicity, or otherwise, starts with words, and we should condemn and not allow. It's equally as ignorant as if it was against someone just because of their religion or their ethnicity.
Mitchell was responding to a call of other people being shot. It wasn't that this killer was motivated by anti-police sentiment. He just shot a cop who showed up to a shooting. Mm-hmm. So looking for advantage in everything that happens. I was disappointed in that. Then there was the Davis Moturi shooting, where people were critical of MPD council members and the public for not coming to his aid. He's like, hey, my neighbor is harassing me. My neighbor is violent. My neighbor has weapons. For months, this man was using racial slurs, he told them. MPD was nowhere to be found. Failed to do anything about it. Eventually, Davis Moturi is shot. And when the criticism comes, Chief O'Hara doesn't say, well, that's my bad. We screwed up. We need to do better. It is people criticizing us are playing political games.
we're not serious if this is how we're going to do things. That's not a serious way of trying to figure out what happened here. And it's just destructive in general when I'm trying to rebuild the police department and encourage people to stay here and come into this department when I have to deal with this narrative that the council doesn't support the police in Minneapolis.
The letter is as you state, is stating basically that the chief and I are hiding behind excuses. First of all, as I stated, this is an incredibly complex situation that she clearly doesn't understand in full. And to understand it, you could reach out to me, and more importantly, you could reach out to the chief. She didn't. This feels a whole lot more like politics than it does like somebody that's trying to find a solution. We should be talking about solutions. And I know we're 300 some odd days out from a mayoral election right now, but this should not be about politics, especially now. Again, less politics. That kind of thing is gross.
It's politics. Apparently he doesn't do politics. People who are criticizing MPD, they're the ones doing politics.
Well, and they blamed Davis Maturi for
in addition
to
the victim blaming.
Same lieutenant gave this victim his phone number and asked the victim to call the lieutenant directly when he sees this person outside the house. The lieutenant never received a phone call from the victim indicating that the person was outside the house. In addition, the situation escalated in part by actions that were precipitated by the victim. And MPD has been working to lawfully and safely effect the arrest warrants that have been issued, with the utmost priority to the sanctity of human life.
I wanted to add something to this narrative too, because Chief O'Hara was on WCCO radio and mentioned something about the consent decree, or I think it's at this point just the state agreement with Department of Human Rights. But he slid in something about how they're trying to adhere to the agreement, which I think is that they're trying to do things like non-violently, right? So like we didn't go into his house because we don't want to, start a gunfight, right? And I think that's really interesting, because if we're trying to hold our police department to a higher standard where they don't go in guns blazing, then we have the situation where they're like trying to follow the rules, right? Where they lay low. And so then it's like, okay, so what does that mean then? Like, is that their excuse, or is that the way that policing is going to work?
Right.
Now, it was just a moment where I'm like, okay, well, here's the switch now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
It's a whole bunch of excuse making.
Okay.
Because another thing that he said after that was he blamed prosecutors.
To be frank, the officers, however, are scared. They're scared of being prosecuted if they get into a situation where they make a mistake trying to do their job and protect the public. I'm sick and tired of hearing this situation. The reality we are in is you are damned if you do and damned if you don't.
Our police officers are scared to do their jobs because of prosecutors, like, as if they're going to get prosecuted for shooting someone.
That's right. It's like, but you don't.
Right. You got prosecuted for George Floyd. There have been some high-profile convictions. What, 2? George Floyd and Dante Wright. But the state troopers who shot Ricky Cobb on the interstate, that got dropped. Mm-hmm. Like, what examples of just egregious prosecutions and police being held accountable for just bogus reasons? What examples of those do we have? I can't think of any.
So I guess, and this is when we wait for the report back. That's supposed to happen by June.
On
Sawcheck, on the police, on the MPD's response.
Is that coming back in June?
It's supposed to be.
Okay. I hadn't heard. I just expected that to disappear.
Well, see, and this is the thing. This is another thing that I think the city council has been, and maybe this will dovetail into one of our other top stories, but that I know definitely Councilmember Robin Wansley has been very vocal about this year about some city departments not following through or not meeting deadlines or delaying some of the report backs that they've been asked to do on behalf of the city council. And so I think with a high profile case like this one, I would hope that they would adhere to the timeline on the investigation or the internal reporting or whatever. But I know, like, there's been a couple things that I've been tracking where I'm like, oh, you were supposed to give a report back, and it's like, and it didn't happen. So
right. And it'll be during election year. Those are my MPD frustrations. Melody, what is your next story?
Well, I did have the Whittier shooting that I guess colloquially, too big of a word for at this point in the day. I will say the other thing that I covered with that situation was how the police treated the neighbors in the apartment buildings right after that for the next, I think, 12 to 24 hours.
Let me guess. Did they wait outside for like 5 days so that nobody got hurt? What did they do in that case?
They didn't let. This is kind of wild to think about, like, if you're a renter, right? Like, so first off, it was only in the apartment buildings. It wasn't across the street where people owned their homes, where they couldn't, if you were already in your apartment building or in your apartment, you couldn't leave. And then if you were outside of your apartment building, you couldn't get back in for the rest of the night until the next morning, even though the shooter was dead. Right. And they didn't have, I'm still wait. I actually emailed the BCA a week or two ago asking if like the investigation has been wrapped up, because they never sent out like the investigation is over. I haven't heard back, even though they had no known other suspect, right? They went through the apartment building where the original shooting took place, the one next to it, and just like searched everybody's apartment, even if they weren't there. So like people with pets were especially upset because, like, you know, dogs and cats and, you know, just being upset. And some dogs, like one person that I talked to, their dog was like accidentally, or who knows, like put into a room, into one of the bedrooms, and like there overnight because the police would not let them get back into their apartment building, you know? Yeah. And then I remember it's just like this, and it just feels very like not community, like not neighborly. And I know, gosh, we live in this big city, and I know like a police officer was just killed, but it's like, you seem to know who did it. You don't have any other suspects. So just rationally, logically, it's like, why are you doing this? You know, for so long. Yeah. Especially if like after the fact you weren't like, we really thought that there was somebody. We really thought that something was going on. And the same thing actually, do you remember when it wasn't that long ago in Lynn Lake, there was that domestic violence situation and the guy took off and then like went way out of... Yeah. They had the Lime apartments on lockdown in a really similar way too, where they weren't letting people in or out. And I observed somebody who was like on house arrest. He had a ankle bracelet on, and he was like talking to a cop. He's like, I can't be out here. Like, I'm on house arrest. I was allowed to leave for like this amount of time. Like, they're tracking, you know, they're like, you can't get in. And then the guy just like snuck back into the apartment. But again, like at the point they knew that he had left, you know, and it's like, why? I'm not a police officer. It just seems from the outside like, not that if we're doing this consent decree, and if we already know that the police don't have the best relationship with the community, right? Why are we choosing to do this if there's not an outstanding reason for it? Yeah. But again, never took a law enforcement class. I don't know. There could be reasons. It just seems from the outside like very... Hey, you know what? I got a fun one. Because you mentioned
you
another
just
top
went.
story.
You just went. You going to go again?
Oh, well, I had the same one as you. Fine, you go.
No,
Fine.
you
Nope,
go.
Nope.
You go.
Nope, it's your turn.
For transition purposes, it sounds like you have one that makes sense to go next.
Well, it was going to be fun and it was going to be way off topic.
Go ahead.
The Wedge cat tour jumping the shark.
How did we jump the shark? What did we do wrong?
Okay, when things jump the shark, it is never the fault of the producer. It's because
Really?
something gets taken out of... what happened to the Wedge cat tour? I don't know this year, but you all it got mega wild. It is a big story though, because I mean the cat tour was already big when I went there. People loved it. I mean, let's just talk about the positives.
Let's first talk about the origin of the phrase "jumping the shark." Is when Happy Days had Fonzie water skiing, jumped over a shark, and people thought that was ridiculous. Basically, the show was over at that point, right? So
Yeah.
I don't think it's as complimentary a phrase as you seem to think.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean it like that, John. I'm really sorry.
Okay.
I am a little worried though. I'm really worried.
Why?
Because I am really worried about next year.
How come?
Because I think you got way too much attention this year, and it wasn't your fault.
You're right. It is not my fault. The accolades are not my fault. A guy from PBS who has an animal show, an animal reality show that airs on PBS occasionally, called me and wants to feature it as, I guess, an episode next year. Here's the thing I will only reveal on the podcast. So nobody clip it, nobody post it anywhere. But the mayor texted me and was like, "Good job on the." He sent a link to the cat tour story in the Star Tribune. He's like, "Good job." I was like, "Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for letting bygones be bygones with all the critical things I say about you, and just sending me a nice note of congratulations on my cat tour."
Mm-hmm.
That was very nice. That was a moment of, comedy. That's what they call it, right? Not funny, but comedy as in everyone's getting along. What else was I going to say? You're right, Melody. It did get big. I'm fielding a lot of media requests. It's become like a part-time job just fielding media requests about the cat tour. It was
No
in
kidding.
People magazine, the Washington Post.
People are going to come in from out of town from this.
I hope not.
They are. I just know that I was involved in the River West 24 in Milwaukee, which had a similar origin story in that it was just developed by community people. It is by and for the community. It was a really crunchy granola, and then the word got out and it just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And I just don't want it to lose its community focus. And when I was walking around talking to people last year, people, especially in the where we are now, where people are so isolated or feel isolated, even if they're not, they just feel isolated. People loved coming together over something so silly and just talking with each other. They just loved it. And I just, the amount of people that will come in for the wrong reasons, I'm thinking corporate people were, try my sample.
You didn't like the person handing out free samples?
No, I love them. I know who they are. Oh. But there's going to be, I know who those people are. They're great. But people can set up,
right.
I just know where people can go with this stuff.
Yeah.
And
one thing guarding against that is it is literally just me. I will have very kind people like Andrea Reel or Ryan Brown who show up that day and are like, "Hey, should I try to help people cross here safely and do things like that?" But there is no security. There's no permits. I'm not asking for permission. It's literally, I set a date and time. And if you want to come walk with me and look at some cats, that's what we're doing right now. And it's turned into hundreds of people. We don't have the capacity to deal with any more, Melody.
That's cool. And I will say it does say something that the mayor said good job and not you need to shut that down.
Right. The mayor so far is not shutting me down, and I need to save that text message for the future court cases where they try to shut me down. I will not be shut down. The cat tour will not be shut down.
It will not. Okay.
My next story is Streets Transformed, Melody.
Okay.
You and I have a history here. We did a podcast episode on Lindale Avenue when they did that 4-3 conversion.
So good.
In the time since we did that, they redid Bryant Avenue. That became a big controversy, a bunch of fist fights between angry neighbors in the city. Hennepin Avenue was also a controversy. More fist fights over parking and the death of Uptown. But we finished phase 1 of Hennepin. I think it turned out well. I like it. Bryant Avenue has been a smashing success. They finished that one entirely. People really respond to it. I have a friend whose brother-in-law came from Europe to visit the area and was blown away by Bryant Avenue. This is a person from Europe where they conceive it. We hear all the time about how much better Europe does it than us. Well, not so on Bryant Avenue. Bryant Avenue is a nation-leading bikeway. That's what I'm saying. Hennepin Avenue, also great. As I said, turns out the people at Hill and Lake Press who said all the trees would be cut down. Remember those stories, Melody? Do you follow the Hill and Lake Press?
Comme ci, comme ça.
They did a thing where they took photos of all the trees and we've cataloged all the trees that will need to be cut down. The city says they have to cut them down. They're all coming down. And I went back and I looked at that and I was like, well, that tree is still there. That tree is still there.
Oh, that's good.
All of those trees, basically every tree. I didn't see one where it was like, yeah, that one got cut down. They preserved a lot of trees on Hennepin Avenue. I don't know.
That's really good.
So all the doomsayers were incorrect. Hennepin Avenue is great. But the aftermath, have you done any reporting on that? Well, how do they feel now? Nobody ever goes back and says, what do you think now?
It hasn't been open. I'm going to give it a couple more months. Let's wait till springtime and then...
You have my permission to wait until the whole corridor is done. I don't want to give you...
No, I think because I think part of the benefit of the new corridor is the pedestrian and bike way. Mm-hmm. And although we have some of the most hardcore bicyclists and pedestrians in the country, I think giving it some time where people can walk and bike around to show the small businesses like that kind of vibe.
Yeah. We have a lot of great NIMBY battles where it's like, no, don't change anything. This is the worst thing that's ever happened to our neighborhood. And then 2 years later, when everything is put back together, whether it's an apartment building that's been built or a street that's been reconstructed, nobody goes back to say well, whatever happened to that thing that everyone was saying was the worst thing ever and was going to destroy the neighborhood? How come we don't talk about that? If that had been true, we would still be talking about it, right?
You make a great point. And I think it's that story is right there for us to look at. Is what happens after especially with all the conflict that happened before the construction happened.
And we can do side-by-side photos of before and after, and we could ask people, hey, would you like to go back to this potholed, super wide, fast, dangerous street that we used to have? Or do you like the calm, tree-lined street that is the new Bryant Avenue?
Kind of leading. That's called a leading question.
I'm describing my photo lineup situation. I'm doing what MPD would do. I'm rigging the photo lineup for a police reality show. That's another crazy one that I'm not getting into. But MPD completely railroading that guy, Quintana, who just got exonerated. The assistant chief of community trust was one of the detectives involved in the railroading of that guy. Are you not familiar with this, Melody?
I don't think I am. Oh,
he was recently let out of prison because he didn't murder anyone.
Yes,
and he was convicted of murder.
Yes.
Let's not talk about that.
Thank you.
Transit news. Bus fares, they talk about inflation. Bus fares are deflating to $2 in 2025.
That's a good one.
And you'll be able to pay with your credit card or your phone if it happens to be an NFC-enabled phone. They're doing new fare payment technology. Yeah, it's going to be easier than ever to ride the bus. And thanks to that additional sales tax money, service will improve as well.
Wait. I meant the club horn noise. I got my horns mixed up.
How about I play the tornado siren? Where's my tornado siren? Okay. I'll do another one because I figure you don't have much left and I have so much. We've been doing this for so long already. Property tax.
I can go. So I have a full glass of water.
Okay.
I mean,
it's going to be a 2-hour episode.
Daniel is locked away in the other side of the apartment.
Property tax anxiety. One of the most remarkable.
Do I get a turn? You just keep going.
Yeah, I figured you don't have much left, right? I've got a bunch left.
I the starred ones, but I have like other ones in between.
Okay, do you want to go?
No, you go.
Okay. Property tax anxiety. One of the most remarkable moments of Mayor Fry's 2 terms as mayor of Minneapolis was when the city council caught him off guard by trying to successfully lowering his recommended tax levy from 8.1 to 6.8. And he showed up the day of that meeting. Usually what Mayor Fry does is he holds a press conference like well in advance of whatever the city council is going to do to like condemn them. This no good city council doing things I don't approve of. He didn't have time to do that. He and Paul Masano were so unprepared. So it was good to see them caught off guard. The council trimmed his tax increase, and afterwards he's like, no, I want to go lower. Another tax-related item, downtown office towers continuing to plummet in value. It's going to raise the burden on residential payers. As a response to that, Jacob Fry told his a joke about nasty cat blankets and
that was this year.
The work-at-home people who just instead of coming into the office and boosting commercial property values, they're staying at home under their nasty cat blankets. Those losers. That was this year. Minneapolis mayor and city council seem open to other kinds of taxes to ease the tax burden in future years, like sales taxes, potentially a wealth tax. What other kinds of taxes are there? They're talking about a lot of options, so they would need state legislature to approve that, I believe. And then we have the Trump admin. They're going to be rough on city budgets. No help is on the way. Jacob Fry has mentioned that as a reason for the city council to behave themselves and not be so fiscally irresponsible because we're not going to have assistance from the federal government in future years.
You know what's interesting how our top stories blend with each other is last year, one of our top stories was Cedric Alexander retiring. That was one of your top stories. And we talked about the amount of money that he was paid, which was $300,000 plus, which was more than the mayor, more than a lot of people. And it's interesting because that is one of the things that Mayor Jacob Fry has currently vetoed, was pay raises for some of the top paid city staff, which saved $1 million. Well, the city council is trying to save like $1 million, right?
Right. The council denied the raises. It's the weirdest veto that has ever happened is him vetoing the council denying pay raises. Because you think, how can you veto a non-action? That doesn't make sense, right?
Yes. Yeah.
But it does make sense if you're a parliamentarian. It does. I promise it makes sense. The council voted to deny the raises. He vetoed their denial. And the effect of overriding it or not has no impact because it's a non-action. If you veto a non-action, still doesn't happen no matter how you override it or not.
Right, because did Josh explain that to you or
no?
Did you figure that out on your own?
I had a conversation with a council member who explained it to me.
I mean, it makes sense, and also like the money has been reallocated anyways.
Right.
But Cedric Alexander's position is
Todd
part
Barnett.
of that.
Todd Barnett, yeah.
Right. Is part of that. And it was just, it's full circle.
Yeah, it's a number of positions that are in the $200,000 and $300,000 range. It's a lot of those. People like Lisa Goodman were denied a pay raise. I'm all for it. I don't think she's leaving the city because she got denied her pay raise. Okay, I think it's your turn, Melody.
Oh, great. Really?
3 for me, 1 for you.
The last story that I was going to mention, which you've already brought up, is construction everywhere. That was like a big deal. You talked about it in a more positive way, but I will say that it was a pain in the butt, especially in South Minneapolis, that for a while, everywhere you went, every road seemed to be under construction. And actually it was because Hennepin Avenue had so much community conflict that got delayed a year. And so that's why Lake Street was under construction at the same time as Hennepin Avenue.
Thanks, Lisa Goodman.
Okay. And so Lake Street was a Metro Transit project, and then Hennepin Avenue was not. So it was interesting that it was, two different projects. And then down in Linden Hills, there was kind of like a city and Metro Transit project happening at the same time, but there was delays there.
Right.
And then, oh my gosh. And then with the Metro Transit project, I tracked, I don't know, I'm not trying to throw anybody under a bus, no pun intended, but I don't know if you notice this when you walk around, but for a minute there, contractors had put some temporary electric poles in the middle of sidewalks in Uptown. And now I got an email. I was CC'd on an email over by, I'm going to mess up what lake. It's by Dean Parkway or Dean. I don't know what the full street name is, but by the train tracks, by the new light rail, there's a stop sign. And then it's a Metro Transit project. They put a pedestrian walkway sign in front of the stop sign. They're making these choices that and over there, there's trains going by. They don't have train arms up. And that's the official term. They don't have train arms up. Down. In the middle of the city, there's trains going by. There's no train arms.
Yeah, I've gotten caught as a pedestrian behind those trains. It takes forever waiting for those trains to pass by. It feels like it takes 10 or 15 minutes if you're going to Cedar Lake.
Do you feel weird that there's no train arms?
It seems fine because it's such a low car traffic area. But you're right, that is odd. I think the thing about the poles on Hennepin and Uptown, those are temporary light poles that they have put in the ground.
But if they're temporary, why don't they just put them temporarily somewhere
more convenient?
Not in the middle of a sidewalk.
They also forgot to install the new connection from the 26th Street bike lane to the new Hennepin Avenue bike lane.
They forgot, or it wasn't in the plans?
It was in the plans.
Oh, it was in the plans. Okay. Because I've been following this.
Yeah. So when they installed a curb where it was supposed to be a ramp up from the 26th Street bike lane, and I think I posted about it, and I don't know if that was the catalyst for them fixing it, but shortly thereafter the curb was torn out and they installed the ramp as depicted in the drawings.
Did you say we had viewer mail?
We do have viewer mail, but that's for the end, Melody. So we're not done. Melody, this is going to be
it's still going.
It's going to be a two-parter. Here, let me do a thing where I say, Melody, we have too much for this podcast episode. We're gonna end it here.
It's actually only been an hour. It's not that bad. Hour 10, and you can edit some of stuff.
I want to split it though. Let me do a thing where I say too much material. This has been the Wedge Live podcast. I'm your host, John Edwards. Thank you to Melody Hoffmann at southwestvoices.news for joining me, and come back next time for part 2 of this episode.
All I know, tap, 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 tap.
This is a real thing. Real thing.
None of you have the balls to stop this. Stop this.
I've got plenty of time. I have nothing else going on today.
We're in the Wedge neighborhood right now.